The receipt was still warm when I realized my girlfriend had just destroyed my life in front of 15 strangers. $3,472. For one birthday dinner, at a restaurant where the waiters wore bow ties and the appetizers cost more than my car payment. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. Darren will cover it, Raya announced, her manicured fingers sliding the leather bill folder across the white tablecloth like she was dealing cards. He's such a sweetheart about these things. The table went quiet. Not the good kind of quiet. The kind where everyone suddenly finds their phones fascinating while pretending they didn't just witness a public execution. I'm Darren Mitchell, 27 years old, junior accountant at Henderson & Associates, and apparently the world's most expensive doormat. Raya Summers sat across from me like a queen holding court, her platinum blonde hair catching the restaurant's chandelier light. She wore a black dress that probably cost more than I made in a week, and her smile had that practiced perfection of someone who'd learned early that being beautiful meant never having to say you're sorry. Wow, Darren, said Zoe, Raya's best friend and chief enabler. You're like so generous. I wish my boyfriend was half as giving. She shot a look at her date, some muscle-bound guy who'd spent the entire dinner checking his phone. Misha, another member of Raya's inner circle, giggled into her third cosmopolitan. Right? Raya's so lucky. Most guys would totally freak out about spending this much. It's not about the money, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. It's about celebrating the people we care about. Tasha, the third member of Raya's trinity, practically cooed. Oh, that's so sweet. You two are like relationship goals? I pulled out my phone and discreetly opened the calculator app. $3,472. That was my rent, car payment, groceries, and utilities for 2 months. Gone. For one night of watching Raya's friends order the most expensive items on the menu while treating me like a walking ATM. Baby, Raya leaned forward, her voice dropping to that sultry whisper she used when she wanted something. You don't mind, do you? I mean, it's my birthday, and you know how important my friends are to me. I looked around the table. Zoe was already posting Instagram stories of her lobster. Misha had ordered 3 different desserts just to try them. Tasha had insisted on the wine pairing with every course. None of them had even pretended to reach for their wallets. Of course not, I said, sliding my credit card into the folder. Happy birthday, babe. The lie tasted bitter, but not as bitter as the realization that this wasn't the first time. There was Raya's small gathering at that rooftop bar last month. $800. The casual brunch for her modeling agency friends, $600. The quick drinks that turned into bottle service, $1,200. I'd been keeping track, like any good accountant would. Every receipt, every charge, every casual assumption that I'd pay. The total was approaching $20,000 over the past year. $20,000 of my money spent on people who wouldn't cross the street to help me if I was on fire. Jules, our server, returned with my card and the receipt. He was probably my age, working his way through grad school, and he gave me a look that was part sympathy, part disbelief. Even he could see what was happening. Thank you so much, sir, he said quietly. And happy birthday, miss. Raya barely acknowledged him, too busy posing for photos with her friends. I signed the receipt, adding a generous tip because Jules had been professional despite my table's demanding attitude, and slipped the paper into my wallet. Group photo, Raya announced, and suddenly everyone was crowding around her end of the table. I found myself pushed to the edge of the frame, barely visible behind Zoe's oversized hair. Post that one with the good lighting, Misha instructed. Make sure you tag the restaurant. They might comp us next time. Only if Darren's paying again, Tasha laughed, and the others joined in like it was the funniest joke they'd ever heard. I excused myself to the bathroom and stood in front of the mirror, staring at my reflection. Brown hair that never quite stayed in place. Green eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. A face that was pleasant but forgettable. I wore a blue tie that Raya had called boring when I picked her up, and a suit I'd bought on sale at Men's Warehouse. When I returned to the table, Raya was already posting on Instagram. The caption read, Best birthday ever. Surrounded by love and amazing friends. Feeling so blessed. Schechter, Queen. Birthday girl. Shakaru, grateful. Not a single mention of who paid for it all. The group was getting ready to leave, chattering about hitting some exclusive club downtown. You coming, Darren? Raya asked, but her tone suggested she hoped I'd say no. I think I'll head home, I said. Early morning tomorrow. Of course you will, Zoe muttered, just loud enough for me to hear. Party pooper. Raya kissed my cheek, leaving a lipstick mark that felt like a brand. Thanks for dinner, baby. You're the best. I watched them leave in a cloud of perfume and laughter, piling into an Uber that would take them to spend more money, probably mine since Raya had my emergency credit card for safety. The restaurant was quieter now, most of the dinner crowd gone. I sat alone at the table, looking at the empty glasses and crumb-covered plates. Mr. Felix, the manager, approached with a concerned expression. "Everything all right, sir? You look a bit pale." "Just tired," I said. "Long day." He nodded sympathetically. "That was quite a celebration. Your girlfriend seems very spirited." That's one way to put it. "If you don't mind me saying," Felix continued, lowering his voice, "we've had Miss Summers here before, usually with different gentlemen, always very generous gentlemen." The words hit like a slap. Different gentlemen? I probably shouldn't have said anything. Professional discretion and all, but you seem like a decent fellow, and... He trailed off, clearly uncomfortable. "How many different gentlemen?" Felix glanced around, making sure we weren't overheard. 3 or 4 over the past 6 months. Always the same pattern. Big groups, expensive orders, one man paying for everything. I felt something cold settle in my stomach. Did she always act the same way, like they were together? "Sir, I really shouldn't..." "Please," Felix sighed. Intimate, very intimate. Hand-holding, kissing, the works. I assumed they were all boyfriends at different times, but now that I think about it, he looked genuinely sorry for me. I thanked him and walked out into the cool night air. My phone buzzed with a text from Alex, my best friend since college. "How was the birthday dinner? Did she at least offer to split the check this time?" Alex worked in IT for a cybersecurity firm and had never liked Raya. He called her a social media vampire and had been predicting this exact scenario for months. I'd defended her, insisted he didn't understand her world, that modeling was expensive and competitive. Now I felt like an idiot. I drove home to my 1-bedroom apartment, the receipt burning a hole in my wallet, $3,472, plus tip, for people who thought I was a joke. But as I sat on my couch, staring at that piece of paper, something shifted inside me. Maybe it was the humiliation. Maybe it was Felix's revelation about the other men. Maybe it was just 27 years of being the nice guy finally catching up with me. I opened my laptop and created a new folder on my desktop. I titled it The Ledger. Then I started typing. My phone started ringing at 6:30 in the morning. Raya's name flashed on the screen, along with a photo of her blowing a kiss at the camera. I let it go to voicemail, then it rang again, and again. By 7 a.m., I had 15 missed calls and a string of increasingly frantic text messages. "Baby, call me back." Something's wrong with my Instagram. People are being so mean. Call me now. This isn't funny, Darren. I made coffee and checked social media while my phone continued its digital tantrum. What I found made me smile for the first time in months. My post had gone viral. It was simple, really. Just a photo of last night's receipt with the caption, "Happy birthday to my amazing girlfriend. So grateful she has friends who appreciate fine dining. Blessed, generous, spirit worth it." But the real genius was in the details. I'd made sure Raya's Venmo handle was visible in a follow-up comment where I'd tagged all her friends. "Thanks to Raya Summers, your Zoe Glamour, Emisha Makeup, I Tasha Trends for such a memorable evening. Raya's Venmo is Rayas Model if anyone wants to chip in for this amazing birthday celebration." The internet had done the rest. Girl, pay him back. This is embarrassing. Imagine being this entitled. He seems sweet and you're using him. Gold digger alert. But the comments on Raya's own Instagram were even better. Her best birthday ever post now had over 3,000 comments, most of them asking why she hadn't paid for her own party. My phone rang again. This time it was Alex. "Dude," he said without preamble, "you're famous. My entire Twitter feed is talking about some guy who exposed his gold-digging girlfriend." That would be me? Holy shit, really? I thought the receipt looked familiar. Darren, this is incredible. She's getting absolutely roasted. I noticed. The best part is, you didn't say anything mean. You just posted facts. Can't argue with a receipt, right? Before I could respond, my other line beeped. Raya again. "I have to go," I told Alex. "The star of the show is calling." I switched lines. "Good morning, sunshine." "What the hell did you do?" Raya's voice was shrill, all pretense of sweetness gone. My phone hasn't stopped ringing. People are sending me Venmo requests for random amounts. My manager is freaking out. "I shared some photos from your birthday. Isn't that what couples do?" "You posted the receipt, Darren, with my Venmo information." "I thought your friends might want to contribute. You know, since they had such a good time." "Take it down. Right now." I don't think I will. The silence stretched between us. I could practically hear her recalculating, switching tactics. Baby, she said, her voice softening, I know you're upset about the money. We can talk about it. Maybe I got a little carried away last night. A little? Okay, a lot. But you know how I get around my friends. I want to impress them. I want them to see how amazing my boyfriend is. By letting them mock me? They weren't mocking you. Zoe called me a party pooper. Misha said most guys would freak out about spending that much money, like I'm some kind of pushover. Tasha literally laughed about me paying again next time. They were just joking. And what about the other men, Raya? Another silence, longer this time. What other men? The restaurant manager told me you've been there before, with different guys. Guys who paid for your friends just like I did. That's not what you think. Then explain it. Those were business dinners. Networking. You wouldn't understand. Try me. But she'd already hung up. I spent the morning watching my posts spread across social media platforms. Someone had screenshotted and posted it on Reddit, where it was climbing the front page of multiple subreddits. Twitter was having a field day. TikTok users were making response videos. The restaurant's phone number was public, and apparently people had been calling to verify the receipt was real. Mr. Felix, bless him, had confirmed that yes, one gentleman had paid for a party of 15, and yes, it was quite expensive. By noon, a local news blog had picked up the story. Local woman's birthday dinner goes viral after boyfriend posts receipt. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. This is Leo Brennan, Raya's manager. We need to talk. This situation requires immediate damage control. I ignored it. Instead, I called Alex. Want to help me with a little research project? Always. What do you need? Everything you can find on Raya Summers. Social media history, public records, anything that might be interesting. Ooh, we're going full detective mode. I love it. Give me a few hours. While Alex worked his digital magic, I went through my own files. Bank statements, credit card bills, receipts I'd saved out of habit. The pattern was even worse than I'd remembered. Raya's birthday dinner, 3472 Turtle Rooftop Bar Celebration, $847. Modeling agency brunch, $623. Drinks with potential clients, 1 to 44. Valentine's Day. Dinner, $892. Her friend's engagement party, $156. Casual wine tasting, $734 shopping trip. Emergency, tweaked out a $100 spa day for her and her friends, $1,890. The list went on and on. $23,418 over 14 months. Almost $2,000 a month every month for the privilege of dating someone who introduced me to strangers as my friend Darren when she didn't want to admit she was dating down. Alex called back at 3 p.m. Dude, you're going to want to sit down for this. I'm listening. First, the basic stuff. Raya Summers, real name Rachel Summerfield, from a middle-class family in Ohio. Moved to the city 3 years ago to pursue modeling. Has done some catalog work, a few local commercials, nothing major. Okay. But here's where it gets interesting. Her Instagram shows her at expensive restaurants and events going back 2 years. Designer clothes, luxury vacations, the works. But her modeling income wouldn't cover a fraction of that lifestyle. The other men Felix mentioned? Gets better. I found her on 3 different dating apps, all with slightly different information. On one, she lists herself as single. On another, she says she's exploring her options. The third one is specifically for sugar baby arrangements. My stomach dropped. You're kidding. I wish I was. And Darren? Some of those photos on her sugar baby profile were taken at restaurants you paid for. She's literally using your dates to advertise herself to other men. The room seemed to spin slightly. I'd been played. Completely, thoroughly played. There's more, Alex continued. I found some interesting DMs she exchanged with her friends. Screenshots someone leaked after your post went viral. Want to hear them? Hit me. Zoe to Raya. Is the accountant still paying for everything? This is getting ridiculous. Raya back. He's so desperate to keep me happy. It's actually kind of pathetic. But the money's good, and he doesn't ask questions. Jesus. Misha chimed in. What about that athlete you were seeing? Des something. Raya. Still around. Way better in bed than Darren, but the accountant's more reliable with cash. I'm keeping both for now. The betrayal hit me like a physical blow. Not just the money, not just the public humiliation, but the casual cruelty of it all. I wasn't a boyfriend to her. I was a credit card with legs. Alex, I need you to help me with something. Whatever you need. I want to destroy her, completely, legally, publicly, and thoroughly. Now you're talking my language. The small claims court filing cost me $47. Best money I'd ever spent. I sued Raya for the full amount, $23,418, plus interest and court costs. The legal theory was simple: unjust enrichment. She'd accepted expensive gifts and services under false pretenses, specifically by misrepresenting the nature of our relationship while simultaneously dating other men. Alex had helped me document everything: bank statements, receipts, screenshots of her dating profiles, the leaked DMs from her friends, even security footage from restaurants showing her intimate behavior with other men while she was supposedly my girlfriend. But the real masterpiece was the timeline we'd constructed. Every expensive date I'd paid for, cross-referenced with her social media posts and the evidence of her other relationships. The pattern was undeniable. The court papers were served at her apartment by a professional process server who found her in a bathrobe at 2 p.m. on a Tuesday, hungover and furious. He live-streamed the whole thing on TikTok, because apparently that's how legal documents get delivered in 2024. "You can't be serious," she screamed into her phone when she called me. "You're actually suing me? Over dinner?" "Over $23,000 in fraud," I corrected. Dinner was just the beginning. "It wasn't fraud. We were dating." "Were we?" "Because according to your DMs with Zoe, I was just a desperate guy you kept around for money while you slept with a professional athlete named Dez." The silence was deafening. "How did you—" "The internet is forever, Raya, especially when your friends decide you're not worth protecting anymore." And that was the beautiful part. The viral receipt had turned Raya's inner circle against her. Zoe, Misha, and Tasha were getting dragged on social media for being complicit in the scam. To save themselves, they'd started leaking everything: screenshots, voice messages, videos of Raya talking shit about me while counting my money. The local news had picked up the story. Man sues Instagram influencer for $23K, claims she used him as human ATM. The reporter had interviewed several of my coworkers who described me as quiet, hardworking, and the last guy you'd expect to fight back. That last part stung, but it wasn't wrong. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "We need to talk. Meet me at Murphy's Bar on 5th Street, 8 p.m. Come alone. Des." I showed the message to Alex, who was camped out at my apartment helping coordinate what he called Operation Payback. "That's got to be the athlete," he said. "Des Williams plays for the city's basketball team. I found him in Raya's DMs. Apparently he's married." "Married?" "Wife's name is Kendra. She's a lawyer, actually, corporate law. Very successful, very scary, and based on her social media, completely unaware that her husband's been sleeping with wannabe influencers." "Should I meet him?" "Absolutely, but not alone, and definitely not without recording it." Murphy's Bar was the kind of place where construction workers drank beer after shift, and nobody cared about your problems. I arrived early, chose a corner booth with good lighting for my phone's camera, and waited. Des Williams was hard to miss. 6'8", built like a truck, wearing a designer tracksuit that probably cost more than my car. He slid into the booth across from me, his presence immediately making the space feel smaller. "You're the accountant," he said. It wasn't a question. "Darren Mitchell, and you're the home wrecker." His jaw tightened. "Watch your mouth, little man." "Or what? You'll assault me in a public place? That would be great for your image." He leaned back, reassessing. "Look, we got off on the wrong foot. I'm here to make you an offer. I'm listening. Drop the lawsuit. Delete the social media posts. Disappear from Raya's life. In exchange, I'll pay you $50,000. Cash. Tonight. $50,000 to go away. That's more than double what you're suing for." I pretended to consider it, making sure my phone was capturing every word. "Where would you get $50,000 in cash?" "That's not your concern." "Actually, it kind of is. See, I did some research on you, Des. Your salary's public record. NBA players' contracts are reported. You make good money, but $50,000 in cash suggests either you're really bad with budgets or you have income sources your wife doesn't know about." His face darkened. "You don't know what you're talking about." "I know you're married to Kendra Williams, a partner at Morrison & Associates. I know she handles high-profile corporate cases and makes more money than you do. I also know she has no idea you've been cheating on her with a wannabe influencer who is also scamming money from me." "You little shit." I'm recording this conversation, by the way, for my protection, so maybe keep your voice down when you threaten me. Des looked around the bar, suddenly aware that several patrons were watching us. A few had their phones out, probably recognizing him. "What do you want?" he asked through gritted teeth. "I want the truth. How long have you been seeing Raya?" 6 months. While she was with me? She said you guys were just friends, that you were some loser who paid for stuff hoping to get laid. The casual cruelty of it hit me again, but I kept my voice steady. Did she tell you I was paying for dinners while she was sleeping with you? Look, man, I didn't know. Bullshit. You knew exactly what was happening. You probably got off on it. The big shot athlete stealing the poor accountant's girlfriend. Dez's hands clenched into fists on the table. You're really starting to piss me off. Good, because I'm just getting started. I leaned forward, my voice dropping to barely above a whisper. Here's what's going to happen, Dez. I'm going to continue my lawsuit against Raya. I'm going to present every piece of evidence I have about her scamming me while she was sleeping with you, and when the local news covers the trial, your name is going to come up. A lot. You can't. I can, and I will, unless you help me. Help you what? Destroy her. Completely. The way she destroyed me. Dez stared at me for a long moment. You're not the same guy she described. No, I said. I'm not. He pulled out his phone and started scrolling through messages. Shay's been asking me for money, too. Says she needs help with legal fees for your lawsuit. How much? 10 grand. Said it was just a loan. I laughed, and it wasn't a pleasant sound. She's playing you the same way she played me. How does that feel? Dez's expression shifted from anger to something like recognition, maybe even respect. Well, what do you need? He asked. The plan was beautiful in its simplicity. Dez would arrange a reconciliation meeting with Raya at Riverside Park, ostensibly to discuss their relationship and figure out how to handle the fallout from my lawsuit. He'd tell her he was having second thoughts about her, that the drama was affecting his career. What Raya wouldn't know was that I'd be there too, hidden in the trees with a clear view and a high-quality microphone app on my phone. Alex had also positioned himself with a camera, disguised as a jogger. The park was perfect for our purposes, open enough that Raya would feel safe, but with plenty of cover for surveillance. More importantly, it was public, which meant anything that happened would be legal to record. I watched from behind a cluster of oak trees as Raya arrived, dressed in designer jeans and a cropped sweater that probably cost more than most people's rent. She looked nervous, checking her phone constantly, her usual confidence shaken. Dez showed up 10 minutes later, right on schedule. Even from a distance, I could see the tension in his body language. This is crazy, Raya said as soon as he was within earshot. That little psycho is trying to destroy my life. Maybe you shouldn't have lied to him, Dez replied. I didn't lie about anything important. So what if I didn't mention you? He was never my real boyfriend anyway. You took $23,000 from him. He offered. I never asked him to pay for anything. If he was stupid enough to think buying me dinner would make me fall in love with him, that's his problem. I felt my jaw clench, but I kept recording. The lawsuit's going to be a problem, Dez continued. My wife's starting to ask questions. If this goes to trial, it won't go to trial. Darren doesn't have the balls. He'll drop it once he realizes how much lawyers cost. What if he doesn't? Raya's voice turned calculating. Then we make him drop it. What do you mean? I mean we convince him. You're a big guy, Dez. I bet you could be very convincing. She was asking him to intimidate me, possibly hurt me. I'm not going to assault some accountant, Dez said. Not assault. Just scare him a little. Make him understand that continuing this lawsuit would be bad for his health. Raya, or I could always tell Kendra about us. I have photos, you know, videos, very intimate videos. The threat hung in the air like poison. Dez's entire body went rigid. You're blackmailing me. I'm protecting us. Sometimes you have to fight dirty. That was enough. I stepped out from behind the trees, my phone held high and obviously recording. I think I've heard enough, I announced. Raya spun around, her face cycling through shock, fear, and rage in rapid succession. You were spying on us? I was gathering evidence for the criminal charges I'm about to file. What criminal charges? Conspiracy to commit assault, blackmail, extortion. Should I keep going? Dez looked like he wanted to disappear into the ground. Man, I didn't agree to anything. You're right, I said. You actually handled that pretty well. Raya's the one who just confessed to multiple felonies on camera. This is entrapment, Raya shrieked. No, this is you revealing your true character. Again. A small crowd was starting to gather. Alex jogged over, still filming, and several park visitors had stopped to watch the drama unfold. Delete that recording right now, Raya demanded. I don't think I will. She lunged for my phone, but I'd expected that. I stepped aside, and she stumbled, catching herself on a park bench. The movement was captured perfectly by Alex's camera and at least 3 other phones in the crowd. You can't use that in court, she said desperately. It's illegal to record someone without consent. Actually, this is a public park. No expectation of privacy. Plus, you were discussing committing crimes against me. That makes it completely legal. Des was backing away, clearly wanting nothing more to do with the situation. I'm out. Both of you are crazy. Where are you going? Raya called after him. We had a deal. We had nothing. Lose my number. As Des walked away, Raya turned back to me with pure hatred in her eyes. You think you're so smart, don't you? Smarter than you thought. This isn't over. Actually, it is. See, while you were plotting to have me beaten up, I was doing more research. Want to know what I found? Her face went pale. Tax evasion, for starters. All those expensive gifts from your various sugar daddies? That's unreported income. The IRS tends to frown on that. You wouldn't. I already did. Filed a report this morning. They're very interested in people who live luxury lifestyles without corresponding legitimate income. The red liquid drained from her face completely. Then there's the fraud investigation the restaurant's insurance company is conducting. Apparently you've been claiming you never received bills for several expensive meals, trying to get them written off as promotional events. Mr. Felix was very helpful with those details. Stop. And my personal favorite, I sent all those lovely DMs between you and your friends to your modeling agency. The ones where you talk about scamming desperate losers and using their money to fund your lifestyle. Your agent was fascinated. Raya sank onto the park bench, her carefully constructed world crumbling around her. Why? She whispered. Why are you doing this to me? Because you did it to me first. The only difference is, when I fight back, I win. I started to walk away, then turned back. Oh, and Raya? That reconciliation meeting you thought you were having with Des? He was working with me the whole time. Turns out when you threaten to blackmail someone's marriage, they get very motivated to help destroy you. The look of betrayal and shock on her face was worth every penny of the $23,000 she'd stolen from me. As I walked toward the park exit, I could hear her crying behind me. For the first time in months, the sound of her distress didn't make me want to comfort her. It made me smile. The small claims court hearing was scheduled for a Thursday morning in a windowless room that smelled like industrial disinfectant and broken dreams. I arrived early, wearing my best suit and carrying a briefcase full of evidence that would have made a prosecutor weep with joy. Raya showed up 10 minutes late with a lawyer who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. She'd clearly spent money she didn't have on her appearance. Designer dress, professional makeup, hair styled to perfection. The image of innocence and respectability. Too bad I had recordings of her planning to have me assaulted. Judge Patricia Henley was a no-nonsense woman in her 60s who'd clearly seen every scam, sob story, and legal maneuver in the book. She looked at the case file with the weary expression of someone who'd been settling disputes between idiots for far too long. Mr. Mitchell, she began, you're seeking $23,418 from the defendant, plus interest and court costs. Please present your case. I stood up, feeling calmer than I had in months. Your Honor, this case is about fraud, pure and simple. The defendant accepted money and expensive gifts from me under false pretenses, specifically by misrepresenting the nature of our relationship while simultaneously conducting intimate relationships with other men. Raya's lawyer, a tired-looking man named Peterson, immediately objected. Your Honor, this appears to be a dispute between former romantic partners. The court shouldn't be involved in matters of the heart. Mr. Peterson, Judge Henley replied dryly, matters of the heart rarely involve itemized spreadsheets and recorded confessions. Mr. Mitchell, please continue. I presented my evidence methodically. Bank statements showing the pattern of payments, screenshots of Raya's dating profiles where she advertised herself as single, the leaked DMs where she described me as a desperate source of money, security footage from restaurants showing her intimate behavior with other men while she was supposedly my girlfriend. But the crown jewel was the recording from the park. Your Honor, I'd like to present audio evidence of the defendant discussing plans to intimidate me into dropping this lawsuit, as well as her admission that she never considered me a real boyfriend and took my money knowing she was deceiving me. Peterson objected again, but Judge Henley overruled him. The courtroom fell silent as Raya's voice filled the air. He was never my real boyfriend anyway. If he was stupid enough to think buying me dinner would make me fall in love with him, that's his problem. Then we make him drop it. You're a big guy, Des. I bet you could be very convincing. The judge's expression grew colder with each word. When the recording ended, she looked at Raya with undisguised disgust. Miss Good-Summers, would you like to respond to this evidence? Raya stood up, tears streaming down her face in what I recognized as her practiced vulnerable victim performance. Your Honor, Mr. Mitchell has taken our private relationship and twisted it into something ugly. Yes, I made mistakes. Yes, I hurt him. But I never asked him to spend that money. He offered, and I accepted. That's not fraud. What about the other relationships? Judge Henley asked. We were having problems. I was confused about my feelings. What about planning to intimidate the plaintiff? I was upset. I said things I didn't mean. Judge Henley looked down at her notes, then back at Raya. Ms. Summers, in 30 years on this bench, I've seen a lot of creative interpretations of the truth, but I've rarely seen such a clear-cut case of deliberate deception for financial gain. She turned to me. Mr. Mitchell, your evidence is compelling and well documented. The defendant clearly misrepresented the nature of your relationship while accepting substantial financial benefits. Her recorded statements demonstrate both intent to deceive and consciousness of wrongdoing. Peterson tried one last desperate objection, but Judge Henley cut him off. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $23,418, plus interest at the statutory rate, plus court costs. The defendant has 30 days to pay or face wage garnishment and asset seizure. The gavel came down with a satisfying crack. Outside the courthouse, local news reporter Jessica Chen was waiting with a camera crew. The story had gained enough traction that they'd decided to cover the verdict. Mr. Mitchell, how does it feel to win your case against the woman who allegedly scammed you out of thousands of dollars? It feels like justice, I said simply. No one should be able to lie, cheat, and steal their way through life without consequences. What message do you have for other people who might be in similar situations? I looked directly into the camera. Document everything, keep receipts, and don't let anyone convince you that being kind means being stupid. Sometimes the nice guy doesn't finish last, sometimes he finishes first, and the people who underestimated him finish in court. As the news crew packed up, I saw Raya standing by the courthouse steps, crying into her phone. Probably calling another potential victim, spinning some sob story about needing money for legal fees or emergency expenses. But her reputation was destroyed. The court case had generated national attention. Her social media followers had abandoned her in droves. The modeling agency had dropped her. Even her friends had publicly distanced themselves from the scandal. My phone buzzed with a text from Alex. Dude, turn on Channel 7. They're doing a follow-up story. I found a coffee shop with a TV and watched as Jessica Chen reported from outside Raya's apartment building. Apparently her landlord was evicting her for non-payment of rent, and several creditors were pursuing collection actions. The woman who allegedly scammed thousands of dollars from her boyfriend now faces financial ruin herself, Chen reported. In a twist of irony, Raya Summers, who once lived a luxury lifestyle funded by others, is now reportedly staying in a budget motel and working at a fast food restaurant to pay her legal debts. The story included an interview with Des Williams, who'd apparently decided to get ahead of the scandal by confessing everything to his wife and the media. I made a mistake, he said, standing next to a woman who I assumed was Kendra. I was unfaithful to my marriage, and I got involved with someone who was running a con game. I'm grateful my wife is giving me a chance to make things right, and I want to apologize to Mr. Mitchell for my role in this situation. Kendra Williams looked like she could cut glass with her stare, but she stood by her husband's side. Des made a terrible error in judgment, she said. But the real villain here is the woman who manipulated both of these men for financial gain. I hope Mr. Mitchell's victory encourages other victims to come forward. As if on cue, the news story cut to interviews with 3 other men who claimed Raya had scammed them using similar tactics. The story was expanding beyond just my case. I walked home through the city streets, past the restaurant where this all began, past the park where I'd recorded Raya's confession, past the courthouse where justice had finally been served. For the first time in over a year, I felt like myself again, not the desperate, lovesick fool who'd been willing to bankrupt himself for a woman's attention, not the victim who'd been mocked and humiliated by people who saw him as nothing more than a walking wallet. I was Darren Mitchell, the guy who'd fought back and won, but I wasn't done yet. The invitation arrived via Instagram DM 3 weeks after the court victory. Comeback party, Des Williams charity basketball event, VIP reception following, rooftop terrace, Saturday 8 p.m., dress code, upscale casual. It was clearly Des's attempt to rehabilitate his image after the scandal. A charity event would generate positive press, and a party afterward would remind everyone that he was still a big shot worth knowing. The invitation had been sent to hundreds of people, including several local celebrities, athletes, and influencers, including me. I showed the message to Alex, who was helping me plan what we'd started calling the final act. He's actually inviting you to his comeback party? Alex laughed. That takes balls. Or stupidity. Either way, we're going. We? I need a wingman for this. Plus, someone has to film the grand finale. The party was being held at the Meridian Hotel, a gleaming tower downtown with a rooftop terrace that offered panoramic views of the city. The kind of place where drinks cost $30 and everyone pretended to be more important than they actually were. I arrived fashionably late, wearing a new suit I'd bought with part of my court settlement. Alex was already inside, mingling with the crowd and setting up discreet camera angles with his phone. The charity portion of the event was wrapping up as I entered. Des had given a speech about second chances and community support, with his wife Kendra standing beside him in a show of unity. The assembled crowd had applauded politely, but I could see the skepticism in their eyes. Everyone knew why they were really here. The VIP reception was on the rooftop terrace, accessible by a glass elevator that offered a dramatic view of the city lights. As I stepped onto the terrace, I was struck by how perfect the setting was for what I had planned. And then I saw her. Raya was standing near the bar, wearing a red dress that was probably borrowed or rented, talking animatedly to a group of men who looked like minor league athletes or wannabe influencers. Her hair was different, shorter, less expensive looking. Her makeup was still perfect, but I could see the desperation in her eyes as she worked the room. She was hunting again. Alex appeared at my elbow. She's been here for an hour, trying to charm anyone with a bank account. Word is she's behind on her motel rent. Perfect timing, then. I'd spent the past 3 weeks preparing for this moment, not just planning what I would say, but setting up the technical aspects of my revenge. Alex had helped me create a presentation that would be impossible to ignore, and we'd arranged for it to be broadcast on every screen in the venue. The hotel's AV system was surprisingly easy to hack when you had a friend in cybersecurity. I made my way through the crowd, accepting congratulations from people who recognized me from the news coverage. My story had turned me into a minor celebrity, the accountant who'd fought back against his gold-digging girlfriend and won. Des saw me first. He was standing with a group of his teammates, looking uncomfortable as they peppered him with questions about the scandal. When our eyes met across the terrace, he gave me a slight nod of acknowledgement. Then Raya noticed me. Her face went through the same cycle of emotions I'd seen at the park. Shock, fear, rage, and finally a kind of desperate calculation. She excused herself from her conversation and walked over, her hip swaying in that practiced way that had once made my heart race. Now it just made me feel sorry for whoever she was targeting next. "Darren," she said, her voice carefully modulated to sound surprised and pleased. "I didn't expect to see you here. I bet you didn't. You look good. Success suits you." "Thanks. You look—" I paused, pretending to search for the right word. "Desperate." Her smile faltered slightly. "I'm doing fine, actually. I've got some new opportunities coming up." "I'm sure you do? How's the motel?" "I'm between apartments right now. Temporary situation?" "Right. And the fast food job?" "That was just to stay busy while I figured out my next move." I nodded sympathetically. It must be hard starting over, especially when everyone knows what you did. "What I did?" Her voice rose slightly, drawing attention from nearby conversations. "You're the one who destroyed my life over some dinner money." "Some dinner money? Raya, you stole over $23,000 from me." "I didn't steal anything." More people were turning to look now. I could see phones being raised, cameras starting to record. Perfect. "You're right," I said, my voice carrying across the terrace. "Stealing would imply you took something without permission. What you did was worse. You lied, manipulated, and defrauded me. You made me think I was your boyfriend while you were sleeping with other men and laughing about how pathetic I was. That's not... Should I play the recording again? The one where you called me stupid and discussed having me beaten up?" Raya looked around frantically, realizing that we had an audience. The entire terrace had gone quiet, everyone straining to hear the drama unfold. "You're making a scene," she hissed. "Am I? Because I think I'm just getting started." I pulled out my phone and opened the app Alex had created. With a few taps, every screen in the venue, the TVs behind the bar, the digital displays showing the charity information, even the LED panels on the building's exterior, switched to my presentation. "Ladies and gentlemen," I announced, my voice now carrying across the entire terrace, "I'd like to share a little story about justice, karma, and what happens when you underestimate the quiet guy in accounting." The first slide was a photo of Raya and me at dinner, looking happy and in love. The second was the receipt from her birthday party. The third was a screenshot of her dating profile, advertising herself as single while we were supposedly together. "This is Raya Summers," I continued, "also known as Rachel Summerfield. For over a year, she convinced me I was her boyfriend while simultaneously dating other men and taking thousands of dollars from me under false pretenses." Raya tried to grab my phone, but Alex appeared beside me, camera rolling, blocking her path. "But the story doesn't end there," I said, clicking to the next slide. "Because Raya didn't just scam me, she scammed multiple men, using the same tactics, the same lies, the same manipulation. The screen showed a timeline of her various relationships, complete with photos, receipts, and testimonials from other victims who'd come forward after my court case made headlines. "Stop this," Raya pleaded, tears streaming down her face. But these weren't the calculated tears of her courtroom performance. These were real, desperate, the tears of someone watching their last chance at redemption disappear. "The best part," I continued, "is what she said when she thought no one was listening." The audio from the park recording began playing through the venue's sound system. Raya's voice, clear and unmistakable, admitting that I was never her real boyfriend, that she'd used me for money, that she'd planned to have me intimidated into silence. The crowd's reaction was immediate and brutal. Gasps, laughter, and a chorus of "Oh my God!" rippled across the terrace. Phones were everywhere now, recording both the presentation and Raya's meltdown. "You want to know what real justice looks like?" I asked, clicking to the final slide. "It looks like a court judgment for $23,000. It looks like a woman who lived off other people's money working at McDonald's to pay her debts. It looks like karma finally catching up with someone who thought she was too pretty and too smart to face consequences." Raya was sobbing now, her carefully constructed facade completely shattered. "Please," she whispered, "please stop. Did you stop when I begged you to be honest with me? Did you stop when I was humiliated in front of your friends? Did you stop when you were planning to have me hurt?" The crowd was turning ugly now. Someone shouted, "Gold digger!" Another person yelled, "Get a real job." The mob mentality was taking over, but I wasn't done. I walked to the bar and picked up a bottle of champagne, the expensive kind, the type Raya used to order when she was spending my money. The crowd fell silent, sensing something dramatic was about to happen. "This is Dom Perignon," I announced, holding up the bottle. $300 a bottle, the kind of champagne Raya used to drink on my dime while calling me pathetic behind my back. I popped the cork with theatrical flair, letting the foam spray across the terrace. Then I walked over to where Raya stood frozen in horror. "This one's on me," I said, and poured the entire bottle over her head. The champagne soaked through her borrowed dress, ruined her makeup, and left her standing there dripping and humiliated in front of a crowd of influential people who were recording every second. The terrace erupted in cheers and applause. Even Dez was clapping, clearly relieved that the focus was off his own mistakes. "Ladies and gentlemen," I said, raising my empty champagne bottle in a toast, "justice is served. The bill is paid in full, with interest." I handed the empty bottle to Raya, who was still standing there in shock, champagne dripping from her hair. "Keep that," I told her. "A memento of the most expensive lesson you'll ever learn." As I walked toward the elevator, the crowd parted like I was royalty. People were patting me on the back, asking for selfies, treating me like a conquering hero. Behind me, I could hear Raya's sobs echoing across the terrace, but I didn't look back. Hotel security was already escorting her toward the service elevator, probably at the request of management, who didn't want the drama affecting their reputation. Alex caught up with me at the elevator. "Dude, that was incredible. The champagne thing was perfect. Very cinematic. I thought you'd appreciate that touch. The whole internet's going to go crazy for this. You're going to be famous." As the elevator descended toward the lobby, I caught a glimpse of my reflection in the glass. The quiet, desperate guy who'd been willing to bankrupt himself for a woman's attention was gone. In his place stood someone harder, smarter, and infinitely more dangerous to anyone who might try to take advantage of him. The elevator doors opened to reveal the hotel lobby, where a small crowd had gathered around the exterior LED displays, watching my presentation on repeat and cheering at the champagne finale. I walked through the lobby and out into the night air, where the sounds of the city welcomed me back to my new life. A life where I was no longer the victim, no longer the fool, no longer the guy who finished last. I was Darren Mitchell, the man who'd turned the tables on everyone who'd underestimated him. And as I walked away from the Meridian Hotel, leaving behind the wreckage of Raya's last chance at redemption, I couldn't help but smile. The ledger was finally balanced.